The Eye of the Needle. For 2.5 days, the hike had been everything she had trained for. The Fundy Foot Path was a backcountry challenge, a remote, rugged trail where civilization felt like a distant memory. Starting from Point Wolf in Fundy National Park, the endless forests and steep climbs had tested her, but she had handled it all with the calm precision she had learned from her previous hikes and former military training. This was exactly what she had wanted, a true wilderness experience, completely off-grid. By the time she reached Little Salmon River, the rain that had poured down all day had suddenly cleared, leaving a strange stillness in its wake. The sky was washed clean, but the world around her felt heavy, like something was waiting to happen. The roar of the river filled the air, echoing off the high cliffs that flanked the waterway. This was where she planned to take the side trail, to the Eye of the Needle, a narrow, almost mystical passage through the rock formations. She had studied it for months, obsessing over every detail. But as she approached the river's edge, something in the atmosphere shifted. It wasn't just the break in the rain or the sudden stillness that settled over the valley. It was something deeper, something old and unwelcoming. She stopped, gazing at the trees lining the riverbank. The world seemed off. The forest was unnervingly quiet now, the birds that had accompanied her for the past days conspicuously absent. Even the insects seemed to have fallen silent. The only sound was the constant rush of the river, a low, droning hum that seemed to vibrate in her bones. The cliffs surrounding the river felt taller, as if they were leaning inward, closing her in. She shook off the discomfort, chalking it up to the intensity of the hike. She was tired, but she had done stuff like this before. She knew better than to give in to irrational fears. Reaching for the map in her pack, she traced the path she planned to take to the Eye of the Needle, the narrow rock passage she had been excited to see. But when she looked out over the riverbed, she frowned. The trail markers, the ones that should have been painted on the rocks, were nowhere to be seen. She double-checked the map, then scanned the shoreline again, searching for any indication of the route. Nothing. Her gut tightened. This wasn't right. She was supposed to be at the exact location where the trail split, leading toward the Eye of the Needle. She knew the markers had to be here. The maps were clear. Her preparation had been flawless. But now, no matter how hard she looked, there was no sign of the trail. She knelt by the water's edge, splashing her face with the cold, rushing current. It wasn't the first time she had been thrown off by nature's tricks, fog covering a trail or weather altering the landscape, but this felt different. A deeper unease had settled in, something she hadn't encountered before. Standing up, she gazed across the river. The cliffs that lined either side were jagged and imposing, their dark faces broken by shadows that seemed deeper than they should be. The sky, now clear of rain, was bright, but the light felt wrong, too harsh, as if it was cutting the world into jagged pieces. Silence pressed in on her, and for the first time in days, she felt truly alone. That's when she saw it. Across the river, near the tree line, a figure stood motionless. It was too far to make out any details, but its silhouette was unmistakably human. The figure was unnervingly still, as if it were watching her. She blinked, and when she looked again, it was gone. Her heart raced. She scanned the trees where the figure had been, but there was nothing there. No sign of movement. It must have been a trick of the light, just her mind conjuring shadows from the mist rising off the river. She was tired after all. 2.5 days of hiking with a little sleep could wear on anyone. She turned back to the river and started walking downstream, her eyes scanning the opposite bank for anything that resembled a trail marker. The water was shallow here, ankle deep, and she moved with caution, avoiding the slick rocks that threatened to trip her up. The further she walked, the more out of place everything felt. The trees along the bank, twisted and gnarled, seemed older than the forest she had hiked through earlier, their trunks thicker, their branches bending in unnatural directions. And then, in the distance, a faint sound. At first it was barely audible over the rush of the river, just a soft whisper carried on the wind. She stopped, listening. The whisper was there again, a little louder this time. Her skin prickled. The sound was too distinct to be the wind, but too quiet to make out. She stood perfectly still, heart thumping in her chest. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing off the cliffs. Nothing.